This is Studio 809.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Outdoors with Hiking Bob podcast. I'm your host, Hiking Bob Falcone. You can find me on my website at hikingbob.com, where you can find links to my social media, my photography website, all the other podcasts I've done. I think this one's going to be number 393 or something. I don't know. It'll have a number next to it. In any case, all that stuff is at hikingbob.com. And also, don't forget, you can leave me a comment or a question or a suggestion for a topic or a guest you'd like to see on this podcast. All of that you can do at hikingbob.com. Today, my special guest is Todd Marts, who is the director of the El Paso County, Colorado Parks Department. And I know I'm probably greatly simplifying your title, but I think that might cover it.
That works for me,
Am I
Bob.
pretty close?
Yep, I think
Okay.
so. Yep. Parks and Community Services, our department. We do include a couple other things, but definitely parks is a big part of it.
Great. Well, Todd, thanks for being here. It's been a hectic day for you and I and scheduling this, but I'm glad we have enough time to squeeze in here and do it, because I love doing, like, you know, the last week's podcast was with your counterpart at the City Parks Department, talking about their year in review and what's coming up. And I always want to do that with the county parks, because you're a vital part of the community too, with bigger parks and all that kind of stuff. So I guess the easy way to start off is, what were the big things that happened, the big, cool, neat stuff that happened with El Paso County Parks in 2023?
We had a few, Bob, and I think some of the highlights, you know, we talked about our Trailability program last year, and we implemented it and been very successful. It's greatly received, and we received a bunch of awards in 23 for that, which I'm very proud of. But I think in addition to that, the publicity and the partnerships and the insight that we can provide to other agencies now. And so my staff has been going out and talking with other agencies on how they can implement something similar. They were featured in the Colorado Parks and Recreation magazine. And so statewide, we've had people reaching out to us and asking. And I think that kind of collaboration, I'm proud that we got it started, and I'm really proud that we're helping others kind of look into it. In addition to that, we are looking at that accessibility this year and last year. And so we also added a VIP trail in Bear Creek next to the Nature Center, visually impaired trail, and partnered with the school in town, the Deaf and Blind School, and has really been a great resource. And again, another opportunity to reach out to other audiences.
Great. And speaking of the Trailability program and, you know, the Terrain Hopper program, which I think is great, it's so successful that at Cheyenne Mountain State Park, where I volunteer, as of this recording, there should be delivered like any day now, two terrain hoppers, exactly like, you know, modeled after yours. I know that the staff there and volunteers there have come over and talked to Kaylee about how the program runs, and we're modeling it very much like your program. It is served to be a pretty good, cool model for
That's great.
things. We elected the same model, you know, the same terrain hoppers, and we got grants. We were able to buy two of them. We thought we were only going to get one, and then a last-minute grant showed up, and called it a company, said, make two.
That's great. I think my team actually trailered up one of the terrain hoppers, brought it down there, and they got to try it on their trails to make sure it really did work, because, you know, it's deceiving on what these terrain hoppers can do. What you want them to do is different, but you can take them on a lot of areas that you wouldn't think about.
Yeah, they wanted to check. Unfortunately, I was away when they brought it over there. I wish I could have been there to help, you know, drive it, but apparently they drove it way, way back in the park, probably further back than we're going to have in the program, but they wanted to get an idea of how far it goes. So really great program.
It is.
And the city now has some track chairs, and a couple of the state parks have track chairs. I think Bar Lake State Park is looking at, I'm not sure if they're going to the track chair or the terrain hopper, but they're looking at it. So a lot of parks are looking at it, and they're looking at you guys for it. So I think that's a great program.
It's been wonderful. Wonderful. If you have time, I'll share a story that really kind of speaks to me, and it kind of encapsulates what this does. There was an older couple that used to walk the trails at Fountain Creek daily, and she got to the point where her health wasn't able to do it anymore. And so he would go with his iPhone and go for the walk, and then do FaceTime and be able to show her all the things that he was seeing. And with the terrain hopper now, she can get in that terrain hopper and go with him, which has just been wonderful.
How is that? Could not be a better story or a better reason to have it than that.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And the people that have not had the chance to see those trails at all, we're opening it up to too. So been great.
And for people interested in that, I did do a podcast with Kaylee last year, and we did talk about it. So
Wonderful.
We can go back. If I remember, I'll put a link in the show notes so you can go back and listen to that one about what the Terrain Hopper program is. But it's just a great program. So you got that going. I think wonderful program. What else you got going on?
So
what else did you have going on?
Yeah. So this is kind of what happened, and what we're doing too is the June weather events that we had, the flooding. It was really devastating to our parks and trails, and so with the presidential declaration, it opened up some funding for us, and right now we're planning several projects through two different programs. One of them is a little more short-term and immediate. We're working on Duckwood Trail, or the Fountain Creek Regional Trail next to Duckwood, and trying to restore that, and then all of the damage that was done to the trails around Willow Spring Ponds. And so it's about $9 million, and we were getting FEMA and some other federal dollars and matching it with 25% from the county surplus. And
Great.
So we're able to, the county planned ahead for emergencies like this, and they've got some money set aside, and we're able to use that 25% match to fix all those trails.
And the Pineries open space, if I remember correctly, took a pretty good hit on some of that, didn't it?
Yeah, surprising. My team up there told me that there were places where there were water that they had never seen water before. And so the areas that we were used to, we knew about those. But so what they're doing right now, and we're doing this immediately, is they're trying to adjust the trails, but putting in what they call puncheons. And that's just basically a wood structure that's going to go over that area, but it won't disturb the area, and then visitors and hikers won't have to walk around. As you know, when you start to walk around, the trail gets wider and wider, and
right.
You really don't avoid the mud; you just create a bigger problem.
Right.
So, yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. And I know the Pineries has since reopened, but it was closed for a while because of that trail damage.
Yeah, with the conservation easement on the Pineries, we are very respectful of that, and we want to make sure that we're responsible stewards for that land. And we thought because of the problems with people going around the trails, we needed to make sure that we were ready to do it. And so closed for a little while, but got to reopen as soon as we could.
Gotcha. So on the road to recovery for all that rain damage.
Yeah, and I see some great things happening in 24 to restore some of those areas too.
Okay.
Yeah.
What other cool stuff do you guys do?
So we did some neat things out at the paint mines, and we're actually doing a master plan in 24, and we're contracting with the company right now, and so we'll be able to do that. The master plan is going to take about a year, and I reach out to all your listeners and make sure that they have that opportunity to voice their opinion during the master plan. But in 23, we had a very gracious gift from the Lida Hill Foundation, and we were able to do some of the immediate things that we know we needed to do. Some trail repairs, some trail adjustments, some additional fencing, some additional signage, and we also have 2 staff out there. And so now we've got a vehicle that they can, with minimal impact, be able to go back and forth and help people in the formations. So we've also put together a great video on the paint mines, and it's on our YouTube channel. Encourage everybody that wants to know more about it. It's kind of like, we wanted to put it out to make sure that people know about the park, but also how sensitive it is. And so
right.
It's a great job of that.
There's been some, I don't want to say problems, but the paint mines suddenly had this great increase in popularity for a while there, especially during COVID. People were looking for stuff to do. And there were some issues out there with the number of people out there. Has that got any better, or is it a combination of people now getting back to work, or your staff out there, or a little bit of both, or what's going on?
Sure. So we do have some trail counters there, and we have seen a slight dip in visitation, but not much.
Okay.
And so I think having those 2 park interpreters there during the peak times has really helped. They, in a nice way, talk to people about the impact you can have on the formations, and also just the presence, I think will help people to stay off the formations and stay on the trail. And so I think that has improved. But we want to look at it long term. How do we make this wonderful resource available, accessible, and also protected at the same time?
Cool. It's an incredibly beautiful place, and I think people don't until your interpreters talk to them, how fragile that beautiful sandstone is that's out there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So when I was still on the park board, there was some discussion about opening up more of the paint mines, because it's a bigger plot of land than the public is getting to right now. Is there any movement on that? Are you planning on expanding? I know there's some on the other side of the road, and I think I'd like to say it's more like what the northern part of the Paint Mines is, not the rocky part, but more open land and stuff like that.
So right now, the master plan will help determine what the right choice is for that. And so, but yeah, correct. Right now, it's closed to just general public. We do have some opportunities to go for guided hikes over there, but right now, in the master plan, absolutely, that's one of the key things that we're going to talk about.
Excellent. Cool. I think one of the big things that you were working on during the past year was the idea of a nature center, a northern nature center, because you have two, and they're both on the south end of town, one at Bear Creek, just across the street from where we're at now, the one you mentioned before at Fountain Creek, two beautiful places. But you're talking about one on the north end of the county because it's a big population base up there. Where are things going with that?
Sure. So, yeah, a little bit more background. In 2013, they identified the need, and so we've moved relatively slowly, but consistently towards that. And so when 2013 master plan identified the need, in 2019 we did a feasibility study to kind of decide Fox Run is the right place. And right now we're in discussions with the design company, and they're designing the nature center in Fox Run. And some of the things that I want to make sure everybody understands is the nature center is there to complement the park and to support the park. Right now, the nature center will take up about 1 acre of property, but I can tell you these architects have mapped out where the trees are, and they're planning that the facility to be sited in a location that will have the least impact. And so 1 acre is going to be impacted, but something else I want everyone to know is that 2 acres are going to be restored. And so right now where the location is, there's a road with a bathroom at the top. We're going to restore that entire area and reforest it. So I think it's a overall negative, a net gain for the park. And so we're doing that. And also we will use that nature center to help support the park in the future. And so we know there are trail issues, and currently we're investing $2 million in Fox Run Regional Park. We're redoing the bathrooms in 24, which is desperately needed. We're doing some work on the gazebo and the ponds. Those ponds are critical for the view and for enjoyment, but also we use those ponds for irrigation, for the turf, which the kids love, those soccer fields. And so we're investing about $2 million in 24 and really looking at future. Fox Run is truly a gem up north, and we want to make it usable and enjoyable by a lot.
You talking about the gazebo and the ponds and everything there. I mean, it's hard not to go there like on a weekend or late in a weekday, especially in the summer. And there's people getting their wedding pictures or their engagement pictures or whatever, graduation pictures taken there because it's such a beautiful spot. The gazebo is gorgeous. The ponds are gorgeous. You get view of Pikes Peak in the background. If it's not there, if it's not that, it's the trees. I mean, it's just a beautiful, beautiful place.
Really is, yeah. And so we recognize that's a resource and definitely something that the public has identified with El Paso County Park. So we're working hard to restore that.
Cool. So not pinning you down to too much of anything too concrete here, because I know things are still flexible, but do you have like any kind of a timeline for when you might see groundbreaking on a nature center up there?
Sure. I can tell you. So 2024, really, we're going to finalize the plan mid-24. The capital campaign is going on right now, and so we're talking to a lot of grantors and funders, and so groundbreaking in 25 is ideal, but again, the money needs to be raised, so that will determine when it actually starts being constructed.
What kind of dollar figure are you looking at for a nature center?
So we're still we're a little over 30%, 40% design, and so right now we're in the 10 to 12 million, but we really need to get through the final design to determine that. So from the county budget, we've got $2 million set aside for the plan and construction, and so we're well on our way, and we've got a couple of good donors that have stepped up and offered to help us out.
Cool. What other cool stuff did you guys do last year?
So something else about the flooding I want to mention, and that is the wonderful Nature Center team down at Fountain Creek Nature Center. So what happened was the flooding in the parking lot went into the nature center and did some severe damage.
Because it's at the bottom of that ramp there.
It also is at the, yes. The good news about Fountain Creek Nature Center is it's nestled into the hillside, but that's also a challenge because then all the water runs into it. So we had some real flooding issues, had to end up tearing out all the floor, a lot of the sheetrock. The nature center was closed for weeks and months, and so the team at the nature center could have just said, you know what, we're done, we're going to close up, and I'm sorry folks, but they didn't. They ended up doing camps outside. We moved in some portable toilets and a little storage area for them, and all the camps were held outside, and all the programs and field trips just continued as was. And so kudos to the Fountain Creek Nature Center team for making that happen.
Excellent. Well, they're a great bunch of people. Every time I stop in there, and
that's the kind of passion we have with our employees.
I like going down there in the summer when the spring and summer when the birds are starting to come through there, and they're just great to talk to every time you see somebody down there.
Yeah, they just installed and I'm far from an expert on this, but some kind of an antenna in partnership with the zoo and other birding organizations, and they can now track some of the migrating birds that are coming through our area. So you might want to do a podcast with some of my staff down there and learn more about that.
If nothing else, find out when the birds are coming through so I go down there and get pictures.
There you go.
Instead of having to go down there and hope I'm picking the right day, which happens a lot.
That's right.
Cool. I guess the other question I have for you is just in general, what have you seen in the parks? Have you seen... we talked a little bit about usage, like at Paint Mines dropped off just a little bit. Have you seen that overall in all the other parks? Is it to stay pretty steady where we're at?
I think other parks are more consistent. I think the reason that I say there was a little drop at Paint Mines is because it was so big during the COVID year. But yeah, I think other parks have maintained, and really the nature centers are increasing and did all the way through it. And so the attendance and program participation is up. And when I look out my window at Bear Creek Regional Park, there's just more and more people enjoying it. So, and what I'm really proud of with El Paso County Parks is all the regional parks, serve such a wide audience. There will be kids that are flying kites, but there will across the street and in the trails there will be people watching the birds and enjoying just some solitude. And
Great.
So that kind of perspective in Bear Creek Regional Park, but it's in a lot of our parks. So very proud of that.
So one of the things I heard, and you can help me understand what's going on with this, is that there's been an issue at the dog park at Bear Creek Dog Park, which is a beautiful dog park. It's big. It's got a creek running through it. Award-winning. You've got awards for that park. Sure. But I understand, what's been a topic of discussion in some circles is that there's been an issue with people not picking up after their dogs as well as they should have. You want to kind of speak on what's going on there and how you plan to address it? And, is it going to be enforcement? What's it going to be to I wish people, I'm a dog owner, and I don't go anywhere without a roll of dog bags with me, but what's going on?
We are concerned about that, and we love our dog parks. We've got more than just Bear Creek. We have one at Fountain Creek, Fox Run, and Falcon, and so we know that resource is important. But we do need that partnership with the owners of the dogs to help us out, keep them clean. Part of the problem in some of the bigger areas like Bear Creek is the dogs can run off quite a distance. They might not know, but we really are asking the dog owners to do their part and help us out, because it will impact, and it could impact it down the road, and we don't want that to happen. We want these dog parks to be open to everyone and make sure that it's not limited. So I would encourage all your listeners, I know they're probably the ones that are picking it up, but to encourage others to do the same. And so we are going to do some additional signage. Some of it is kind of clever and funny, and some of it is a little more pointed about making sure you pick up. And so we're going to continue to do that and maybe have a little more of a presence there to make sure that people are reminded that it's more than just the one that's next to the trail. It's all of it that we need to make sure we pick up.
I would like to think that my listeners are all the more responsible listeners, but hopefully they can tell the people who aren't to behave. So, and without, again, pinning you down to anything solid, and just thinking about these things as we're talking about this, is if this doesn't work, and I really hope it works, I hope people just get their stuff together and behave better and pick up after their pets. Mm-hmm. Is it a possibility that you might reduce the size of it or close it if it gets really out of control? I mean, I know we don't want to do that, but I'm thinking like places like Palmer Lake, which had such an issue with people doing this exact same thing and it was near their watershed that they've completely shut down. You can't bring dogs up there, which is a shame. There's beautiful trails. Right. Nobody wants to see that happen. But is that something you might consider if it gets really out of control?
I hope not, Bob. I think right now the steps that we're taking is doing some additional signing, doing some additional talking to people, but we are also meeting with the Friends of the Dog Park, which are a great group of people, and what can we do next? What is the next step? And so we have yet to determine what that is, but my hope is we never have to go to limiting or controlling that. It depends on the reaction of all the people that are using the dog parks.
Oh, I would hope you don't have to do it either. But I just love it. I don't bring my dog up this way very far, and if I do, we're usually going further up. But it's such a nice resource and near so many people. Yeah. You got apartments all around it. And you're not far from downtown. So many people near it that you hope that. It's bigger for a reason, and I think it's just a gorgeous park. Right. So I'm a little disappointed in my fellow dog owners. And step it up. Let's get a little better at this stuff. So your staff and the friends group there doesn't have to spend a lot of time picking up stuff that people should be doing on their own.
I look forward to talking to you in January of 25 and what has occurred. Okay. Hopefully we'll see some improvements.
Cool. I hope we are. Yeah. Hope we do. You got any other cool stuff that happened in 23?
So, I think that kind of wraps up most of what we've done. There certainly is a million other projects and things going on, but those are kind of the big ones. Some of the things that are moving forward, we're doing the Paint Mines Master Plan, but we're also doing some real work at Homestead Ranch. And, sometimes people say you do a plan and it sits on a shelf. And this is a demonstration that doesn't happen for us. This Homestead Ranch, we just did a master plan, and now we're going out and implementing what we planned as much as we can, as much as we can afford. And so doing some trail work, some work on the erosion problems, it's that erosive soil.
Coming out of the bottom and getting up to the mesa up there. Yeah.
So doing some trail work on that, some contracted work, some of it's in-house, and fixing up the playground and making sure it's safe and moving it forward to the next. There's always coming out with new ideas and new things for playgrounds, and so I think it's a good demonstration that we're working on. Homestead is again a bit of a hidden gem, and I encourage any of your listeners to go out there and see it. It's a beautiful park, and once you hike up to that view up above and see all that, it's great. So.
Those views from the cliffs on the southeast corner of that mesa are just gorgeous. The views out towards Pikes Peak and everything. One of my favorite places. I wrote about it a couple times in my column at the Independent when it was running, and talked about it. I'm taking some people out. Said, you really need to go check this park out. Yeah. It's a gorgeous little park. Like you said, it's back there. You got to want it, but it's worth the want to go back out there.
Yep. If you're looking for a little more of that solitude on your hike, it's a great place to go.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. In addition to that, since you're hiking, Bob, we've got some trail projects going, which is exciting. We're looking at building a little over, I think, 3.5 miles of trail in the Pineries. It's kind of the phase 2 of our trail project there, and it looks like we've got a grant to help us out with that for some of the youth corps to come out and do some of the work with us, which is great. And then we're looking at about another 1.5 mile loop up at the new Santa Fe open space. And again, one of those, we just opened it, so there's not a lot of users yet, but we recognize already that the people that are there are wanting to go on this section, and so we're going to develop another loop through the meadow, and it's got a great overlook.
Cool. Yeah. So the Pineries, is that southwest corner?
It is.
Okay, yep. And and I know when that was being planned and everything, the idea was eventually to connect that to Section 16. Yeah. That looked like that's kind of where you're headed, and maybe not right away, but
still very much in the works. And El Paso County Public Works is looking at that intersection and ways to do that, and there's some funding that should be coming available to help out with that. And that absolutely is our long-term goal, to tie those two properties together.
Cool. One of the things I want to talk to you now that it reminds me, Section 16, that little piece of land that the county has, that was kind of in flux for a little while in 23. You want to talk about how that ended up?
Sure. So it's not in flux. We've renewed our lease. It's 10 years, and we are continuing to do exactly what we were doing before. We maintain the trail, working on the the area around the parking lot, because it is such a popular one. We're trying to make sure we can accommodate as many users as we can, and we'll continue to do that. And there's a lot of conversations going on right now, and discussions and meetings on long-term solutions for that section. So if it's just the trail, that's great. If it's more than that, it would be great too. So
for the listeners, that land is leased by the county from the state land board.
Correct. Yeah.
So it's state land. And very specific uses. Is there any plan, because right now the county has the outer, what I like to say, just the outer perimeter of it.
Right.
A lot of it in the middle is just, fenced off and everything. Is there any plan is that maybe the future plan to gain access to the middle of that and maybe gain access to more of that property, or are you content with just having the ring on the outside of it?
So we're happy with the outside section, but of course the inner part is a true treasure too. It is currently leased by school district. So, their use of it is they love it. And so we need to make sure that we're partnering with them and working with them if we're going to look at long-term solutions, and we are.
Cool. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, I almost forgot about that, but I'm glad we started talking about it. And it sounds exciting for the new Santa Fe open space, yet another trail in that open. So I was just talking to somebody not too long ago. I was doing a little presentation at a group, and they were looking for hard trails and easy trails. And I said, well, the Santa Fe open space, you're on the Santa Fe Trail. You take a little side trip into the open space, do a couple loops up there, come back out on the trail, and just keep going where you're going. I think it's a really cool spot, and the views up there are nice.
Yeah.
So this one's going to be even better, huh?
It will. Well, I don't know, better. Different. Yeah.
Different.
Yeah. So,
Different's good.
Yeah.
Different's good. Cool. What other cool stuff you got coming up this year?
Well, I think my last thing really is making sure that we're expanding on that ADA and accessibility, and providing for all audiences is what we're going to really be striving for. And so one example of that is down at Fountain Creek. We're going to work on the accessibility to the nature center, but also to the trails and to the parking lot. And something that, sometimes we just don't think about it, how hard a little bit of a crack in a sidewalk will be. And not just for wheelchairs and walkers, but for people that are struggling walking. And so we recognize that, and I think the county overall is really trying to address that. And they're working, facilities is working with parks to make sure that we continue that process. We know it's not going to be over. We're going to continue to do it, but I think I see some neat things happening in 24 to help with that accessibility, to provide for all audiences.
Do you see any more track chairs, terrain hoppers in your future?
It could be a track chair too. I'm not opposed. Those are great too.
Yeah.
So yeah, we do. Definitely at Fox Run, with the Nature Center being built, actually the current design has a little bit of a small garage for a terrain hopper to park in. So I'm kind of planning ahead. So yep, we've got looking at an ADA accessible trail. Something else that your trail users will want to know: we're not closing trails. We'll improve trails, we will restore some trails, and we will build a few other loops that are a little more sustainable, because sometimes they're in drainages and things like that. But we're looking at doing an ADA trail that will be perfect for the terrain hopper or for others.
Excellent. So a couple of questions I had for you. I think what you guys are doing is great. When I was on the park board, I was always impressed about how much work the staff at county parks did with a much smaller staff and much less funding than other places. Mm-hmm. Still get amazing stuff done. So I appreciate the work you guys are doing. But that brought up a question, and I know this keeps coming around in a topic of conversation, is that the city has the TOPS tax, which is used to acquire property. The county doesn't necessarily have a dedicated fund like that. I rely on general fund, like most counties, I'm sure do. Do you envision a time when the county might have something similar to a TOPS program? Is that something you see coming up? And I don't want to get you in any hot water with your bosses or anything like that, but do you see something like that maybe coming up in the future?
So Bob, I've been with the county for 30 years now, county parks, and so I've seen the ebbs and flows, and I can tell you that right now the budget is being restored from the really lean years that we had. Every year we've gone up a little bit, and I think in this last 3 years, the county really has done a great job of addressing what is our most important asset, and that is our employees that care for all these wonderful parks. And so the county is investing in it, but for sure, I mean, a dedicated tax or some kind of a funding source that was separate would always be something that we would look at and consider. And I think that's something that there's some community members that are interested in exploring that option. And I know that the Trust for Public Lands is open to doing some kind of a feasibility study for something like that. And so it's never no. It's always, we should look into it and consider it. And if it's a voter decided thing, then that seems like a good option for them. So if the voters are the ones that get to decide yes or no, we hope they would vote yes. Okay.
Well, I'm glad that you did mention that in the last budget. You really took care of the employees. I'm going to say you, but the county commissioners control the money. Took care of the employees, because I know that's always been an issue. The county's pay didn't always keep up with the surrounding areas, but it sounds like you're getting more on par with the surrounding areas.
We are. And I certainly need to be respectful and with privacy, but I can tell you that I've had some employees come to me and say the things that have happened over the last couple of years are life-changing for them.
Wow.
So it's really an impact, and I'm proud to be associated with that and involved, and the great work that they do, I think they're just more inspired now to do that.
Great. Well, looking at it from the outside, and obviously, if you get pay up on par and benefits up on par, it decreases turnover. You have more consistency in people staying. Absolutely. That longevity, they own more into it. You're not training people all the time because you're keeping people there. I mean, all these things to benefit besides just that they have, they have more income. The long term for the county and the Parks Department, and of course all of us who use it, is long term. It's just like you pay them enough, they're going to stay here instead of looking for the next job that pays a little bit more.
Very well said. So, yeah, that's exactly it, and that's what we're trying to accomplish, and I think we're doing that.
Great.
So we're minimizing turnover right now, and we're seeing people that are saying, you know what, I'm going to stay. So
I'm hearing that from a number of government agencies that they're like, we just need to keep people here. And the way to do that is to pay them, we've talked about it before. I was a government employee for many, many years, not with the county, but actually a very short period with the county, a long, long time ago. But, the idea is that, nobody gets a government job to get wealthy, but you want to make enough that you're not looking for the next best thing. You want to stay where you're at. If you're working here, you like it, you want to stay.
For sure.
You don't want pay to be the issue why you decide to move on, and taking that out of the equation is great. So happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Our county employees definitely work very hard.
Thank you.
And I'm glad that they do that. What other things do you see, if we're not talking about 24, but further down the road, that we might be looking at happening with the county parks department? I know we said that the nature center at Fox Run could be probably 25. Hopefully we'll see something going on there. But what else do you think might be going on further down the road?
For sure. So I think some of the exciting things that are happening right now that should help us shape the future of county parks, and that is the new county, I guess it's not new, it's been a year now, but the strategic plan overall for the county and how we're going to take the infrastructure as a bigger body of all the infrastructure for the county, and how do we address those deferred maintenance needs that everybody has.
Yeah.
And so we're looking at that right now, and I think we'll start to see the action plan and the capital improvement program be based on that. And so we'll see some changes over the next couple of years of how we do our capital improvements and some of the funding that will support those.
Excellent. Yeah. Let me ask you a question. You said you've been with the county parks for more than 30 years, which is tremendous. I mean, I congratulate you for that. Have you seen, and I'm hearing this from other agencies, have you seen that the elected officials' view of parks has gone from something we could take or leave to something that's more of a vital piece of the county government? Have you seen that change here with the county government?
I don't know change. I mean, I certainly am much closer now to the elected officials than I was early on in my career. But I really can attest that they do support parks, and they all have their own districts and they have their own parks, but they know the global the global impact parks have on our environment, our community, our economy, and our residents. And so, yeah, I think for sure there's interest, and in my short time of being invested in this kind of a role, I can see that they are. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's some definitely parks are on the radar.
It's part of the conversation every year, and
Okay.
so yep. So we during the budget cycle, we're part of that conversation.
Okay. One other question I have for you. The city right now is looking at establishing a policy for e-bikes, and they have a unique circumstance with the TOPS properties have one set of ordinances that control, as an ordinance that has specific language. The rest of the city does not, and they're working on balancing that, and that's going to be a process I think we'll see going through the year. What is the county's policy on that, or do you have a policy on e-bikes? What is it, and are you working with the city to hopefully establish a consistent park? Because we're looking at Bear Creek Park. It's in the middle of the city, but it's a county park, and people going through it are not going to know, or really they shouldn't care that they're going from a city park to a county park and back in if they're just out there enjoying it. So where is the county on the e-bike issue?
Great question, Bob, and it's something that's a challenge. It really is. I mean, there's so many complexities to this issue, and so many passionate people on both sides. It's hard. So from my perspective as the executive director, I really see a couple of priorities. One is making sure that we're accessible and fair and safe on our trails, and so there are people that are using e-bikes that have, they need that, or they use that to get around, and it's opening things up that they don't normally get to see. And so I see the value in that, and I want to be respectful of that, and I want to do it safely. So that's the challenge. And the other thing that's really important to me is consistency. For us, we've got, like you said, parks that are inside the city, outside of the city, but our trails connect to everybody.
Right.
And so we want to make sure as much as possible that our users don't have to stop using at this one spot or change or whatever, or turn around. I want to be as consistent. And so we've got some of the same challenges the city does. We've got conservation easements on a lot of our properties, and those have restrictions on motorized. And so how do you define that? And so we're working through that on the conservation easement side, trying to come up with what are our options in the next year, and then we'll be talking to the city and other government entities and making sure that we, if we can, be consistent.
Excellent. Good answer, because it is a complex issue. I think it's more complex than a lot of people think. And I'm finding I now own an e-bike at another place I live part of the year, and I don't take it off trail, and mostly my wife uses it. But it's a great device, especially as some of us are getting a little older and a little grayer, and it's a great device to have. But there are those restrictions, like you mentioned, with conservation, but that nobody just envisioned this. Right. They figured everything was going to have a big loud gas-powered engine, and nobody saw this coming. And I think and unfortunately, technology moves so fast, and government agencies, just by their nature, don't.
Right. Yes.
It's taken a while to catch up.
It does. And I think this one is one of those complex ones. Pickleball, another different example, but somewhat similar. They were using tennis courts and cutting them in half and putting up new nets. And, it took us a while, but we did realize, I can tell you that the e-bikes are way more complicated.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So,
it's a little different than just restriping a tennis court.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can assure all your listeners that we are aware of it. We're working on it, and we will continue to listen and hear what people are saying, because it is something that we want to get figured out as soon as possible.
My concern is, and I'm sure you're thinking of this, and everybody who's working on this is thinking about it, is what are we going to have 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, that we're all going to be come back here going, what do we do with this? Kind of a thing.
Yeah. I think we talk about that too. Are the challenges of when we put a conservation easement on a new property, which I'm sure we will, we want to make sure that we're conscious of that as much as possible. But you're right. How do you plan? Right. I don't know if when I started my career 30 years ago, I would have envisioned e-bikes being a thing to think about. Right. So, but try to be as proactive on our thinking, and we'll see what happens in 25.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Todd, great conversation as always with you, and I always appreciate having the time to talk to you when we run into each other. Great running into you whenever we happen to cross paths. It does not happen as often as I wish it did, but I'm glad we do get to do that. Anything else you want to tell everybody that I may have forgotten to ask you about?
I don't think so. We miss you on our park advisory board, so wish you the best of luck and encourage anyone that's listening, if they have questions, please come to us and ask, or comments or compliments, any of those things. We love to hear them, and it means a lot to us.
Well, your current chair of the Parks Advisory Board is doing a great job.
He really is.
He's really out there and trying to gather all the information. He's doing a wonderful job, so you've got a good chair there right now. It's good. I run into him occasionally, and we have great conversations, so it's good to see him out there. Well, Todd, thanks again for taking the time. I know we had to squeeze this in, but I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today. And we're recording this about a week or two before you hear it, but right now we're looking at fresh snow on the ground. And I want to go snowshoeing before this melts. So I may head out of here. I got the snowshoes in the Jeep, and I may head out up into the hills and do some snowshoeing. So Todd, thank you so much again.
Thank you
for having me here today and talking with us. And everyone, thanks for listening to the Outdoors Hiking Bob podcast.